Welcome to this week's edition of the Top 10 in 10, brought to you by The Watchpost. Each week, we break down 10 important stories shaping the prophetic landscape in 10 minutes or less. I'm your host, the Watchwoman at her post, also known as The Lookout. This is episode 103 for the week ending Friday, April 3rd. This week's headlines truly run the gamut, with some following similar themes from prior weeks, while others are, well, a little out there. Let's get the countdown rolling. Number 10. Trump's speech and the abundance of confusion.
U.S. President Trump's recent speech about the Iran war left many shaking their heads in confusion. Trump said the war is nearing completion and major objectives have already been met, but he also warned of additional strikes over the coming weeks and threatened further escalation that might include attacks on civilian infrastructure. The president denied pursuing a regime change in Iran, but at the same time acknowledged the possibility of leadership removal. He projected confidence in what he described as a strong U.S. economy and downplayed the impact of the oil crisis stemming from disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz. He bragged that America has all the oil it needs and challenged European nations to handle the Iranian stranglehold of the strait themselves. With many of his points seeming to contradict themselves, Trump's speech left America and the world with a big open question mark. Is the conflict coming to an end, or will it escalate?
The word tells us that Satan is the father of lies and author of chaos and confusion. Our difficulty in getting straight answers and reliable information in the midst of all the rumors and distress isn't surprising in light of that. Number 9. The alien narrative grows. The conversation around UAPs, UFOs, and alien disclosure has moved beyond sightings and into something far more provocative. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz made headlines after recounting a claim he says was shared with him by a member of the U.S. Army. Gaetz said he was told about alleged hybrid breeding programs, the idea that non-human entities were being forced to reproduce with humans to create a hybrid race. He said that the human participants in these alleged programs were taken from war zones and even migrant caravans. In related news this week, Vice President J.D. Vance shocked viewers of Benny Johnson's conservative podcast by stating that he believes aliens are actually demons. While many Christians agree with Vance's take on the matter, the comment came out sounding preposterous to non-believers and likely the world at large. Scripture tells of a strong delusion and a great falling away in 2 Thessalonians. Many Christians believe both are directly related to alien disclosure. Number 8. Lawless teen takeovers, a global pattern emerging. A disturbing scene unfolded in the UK this week, causing storefronts to close early and families to barricade themselves inside shops, while large groups of teenagers flooded the streets and overwhelmed police. Similar scenes have been unfolding across multiple nations. In U.S. cities like Chicago, Philadelphia, and New York, teen takeovers have been unfolding, where large groups gather rapidly in downtown areas, overwhelming public spaces and forcing police response. In Germany, authorities are reporting rising group theft and fast-forming youth clusters in commercial districts. Early signs of the same behavior are emerging in Australia. These so-called teen takeovers are often violent and dangerous, causing riots and stampedes. The New York Post reports that in February, 5 people between the ages of 15 and 18 were shot as police broke up a takeover at Jacksonville Beach in Florida. The events are planned on social media and used by some to gain internet notoriety. This brings to mind the warnings in Matthew and 2 Timothy about lawlessness, love growing cold, and disobedient children as the world grows ever more hateful and evil the nearer we come to the end. Number 7. Hypermutated strain of COVID gaining traction. While it's been in the news for a few weeks now, a C19 variant known as cicada has continued to spread in the U.S. and across the globe. Latest numbers show that it's been reported in at least 25 U.S. states and more than 22 countries. Scientists say this strain has 70 to 75 mutations in its spike protein, which makes it a new lineage that is genetically distinct from previous variants. This means it's able to virtually escape immunity in the population. Officials believe it will be resistant to current vaccines as well. Scripture warns in several places about plagues and pestilence in the last days. The C19 epidemic was just a shadow of things to come. Number 6. Eyes to the skies again this week. We reported a geomagnetic storm last week that pushed the northern lights much further south than normal. A strong G3 storm warning was issued for Friday following another coronal mass ejection impact this week. Scientists warn of potential impacts on satellite and power systems. In other skywatching news, NASA says that the planet Mercury reached its furthest point from the sun Friday, making it easier to spot from Earth in the early pre-dawn hours. And 2 comets are passing this month, both of which should be visible with binoculars or a small telescope. One of them may even be bright enough to see in the daytime if it doesn't disintegrate as it nears the sun. As to the signs in the heavens that we're told to watch for, well, there sure is a lot of activity up there lately. Number 5. Islamic terror threat calls for Easter attacks. A concerning development emerged tied to messaging from ISIS this week, calling for attacks targeting Christian churches and Jewish synagogues during the Easter holiday. The call appeared in the Islamic group's propaganda outlet, released in late March. The messaging frames potential attacks as retaliation tied to escalating tensions in the Middle East, particularly surrounding Israel, Al-Aqsa, and the ongoing Iran conflict. The terrorist organization is encouraging arson-style attacks targeted at religious gathering places in the U.S., Europe, Russia, and India. This news isn't surprising given the warnings in the book of Matthew about end-times Christian persecution and the broader increase in lawlessness and violence. Number 4. Another record-breaking earthquake. Just last week, we reported on a 7+ magnitude quake that had set the record as the strongest one all year. That record was quickly broken with a 7.6 magnitude undersea quake that struck the northern Molucca Sea near Ternate, Indonesia on Wednesday. The earthquake had a depth of about 22 miles, triggering a brief tsunami warning and waves reaching as high as 2.5 feet in North Sulawesi. At least 1 person was killed, several others were injured. Damage was reported to homes, a church, and other buildings. Aftershocks followed, including one above 6.0. Jesus told his disciples to look for earthquakes as a sign that the end was near. When we start seeing so many strong quakes, one right after the other, it makes us sit up and take notice. Number 3. Kenya flood worsens into serious humanitarian emergency. Reuters reported on March 28 that flooding in Kenya had killed at least 108 people after weeks of heavy rain. More than 2,700 families have been displaced. The CARE organization warned that entire villages have been submerged, crops destroyed, and the cholera risk is rising. This is just one more example of the devastating results of climate chaos in these last days. Number 2. Governments respond to oil crisis stemming from Hormuz Strait closure. As energy pressure builds, reports are emerging about various government responses across the world. Some are enacting highly restrictive measures. In Myanmar, driving is controlled through an even-odd license plate numbering system. In Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, schools are closed and blackouts imposed to conserve power. Indonesia is rationing fuel and shifting workers to remote schedules. In Egypt, businesses are to close at 9 p.m. and lighted billboards are going dark. Australia is offering temporary free public transportation as a means to discourage driving. Other countries are simply encouraging citizens to conserve at this point or enacting subsidies and pricing controls to protect their economies. The unspoken threat of energy-related lockdowns looms like a dark cloud in many places. This news harkens to the prophecy in Revelation 6 that reveals coming economic failure in the last days. This news harkens to the prophecy in Revelation 6 that reveals coming economic failure in the last days. Number 1. 2 U.S. fighter jets downed in Iran Friday. 2 U.S. military aircraft were shot down by Iranian fire on Friday. A U.S. F-15E fighter jet was brought down over Iranian territory. This was the first confirmed loss of a manned American jet in this war. 1 crew member has been rescued, while a second remains missing, triggering an active search and rescue operation inside hostile territory. During that operation, a second aircraft, an A-10 attack jet, was also hit, though the pilot was able to eject and was recovered safely. U.S. rescue helicopters came under fire as well, but managed to return to base. This development raises the stakes significantly, with an American service member potentially on the ground inside Iran. Later reports suggest Russia, by way of the Caspian Sea, provided Iran with the air defenses that enabled these attacks. This reminds us how the nations continue lining up for the prophesied Ezekiel 38 war. That's it for this week's edition of the Top 10 in 10. We at the Watchpost wish you a happy and safe Easter weekend. Until next time, stay in the Word, keep your eyes on Jesus, and have a blessed Resurrection Sunday. Watchwoman signing out. Join us again next week for another breakdown of news on the prophetic landscape. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss a beat. Also, leave your thoughts about this week's stories in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you.